what these species are. And I'll be explaining the different types or categories of the species of amphibians and reptiles that we have already investigated in Rwanda, and then bring in the idea of the journey from where we started these inspirations until to date. So as you can see on the left, there's a picture, and definitely this is a frog. So these are cold-blooded animals. They are vertebrates. They have a vertebral column. And among the amphibians, we have three main groups. We have the frogs and the toads that we call the anurans. These are the tailless amphibians. Then we have the newts and the salamanders, where we have some lizard-like amphibians. And we have the caecilians. These are the snake-like amphibians. However, in Rwanda, we only have the anurans. These are the tailless amphibians, the frogs and the toads. And we also have the caecilians, falling under the group of the genophions. When you look at the caecilians, they look like snakes. Others call them earthworms. However, they have a skeleton. Their skull is bony, and the mode of reproduction is similar to that one of the toad and frogs, where they lay eggs in the water. Their tadpoles grow from the water, and then when they mature, they go to the land to perform other vital life processes, such as feeding and escaping and hunting and so on. So these frogs and the toads, they differ also within them. Of course, scientifically speaking, all the toads are the frogs, but not all frogs are toads. So what do I mean by here? Frogs are mainly known to have a slippery or slimy body, and they have longer hind legs. The legs behind are longer than the ones in the front, the hind limbs, which allows these animals to move. So some of the frogs will be jumping, others will be hopping, others can also walk, depending on the species and how longer the hind limbs are to allow the mobility. So they are semi-aquatic, hence the words amphibians means double life. So they will be living in the water when they are still young. Of course, from the first day of hatching of the tadpoles to at least a month, where they can start swimming. Then 1 or 2 months, the tadpole will become a small frog with some legs developed, but still maintaining a tail, which is cut off, and then allow this amphibian to crawl freely on the land. So they have this double life. They mature and go on the land. On the other hand, if we talk about reptiles here, they are also ectothermic. They are also cold-blooded, same as amphibians, but the difference, as you can see, is a chameleon. They have scales, so the body is scaly, and they have, of course, a prehensile tongue and also a very long and curled tail. But the length of the tail also will differ among species. We have some chameleons or some lizards that can have very longer tail than others. So for the reptile group, we have different groups, including the limbless lizards. These are the snakes. We have, of course, the common lizard with some limbs that we call the lizard, of course. So here we're talking about some geckos and some other groups. And we have some other species with a hard shell. These are the turtles. So here in the turtles, we also have different subgroups where we can have aquatic turtles that we're calling the terrapins. These are the aquatic ones. And we have the tortoises, which are on the land. And of course, there will be differ also between them. depending also on their mode of life, where some can be on the land and others can be aquatic, though these last can also come on the land while they are feeding. So we have also the crocodiles in Rwanda, and we can also list some other groups which we don't find in Rwanda that we call the tuataras. However, in Rwanda we also have other reptiles that we call, they're big lizards, similar to a little bit of crocodile, but they're not crocodiles. We call them the monita lizard, part of the lizard. So these reptiles, unlike amphibians, they are fully adapted to life on land. Of course, as I just explained, we can have some others which can also have also adapted to hunting or staying into the water. However, some snakes, for example, can be found on the land, and others will be within aquatic systems, though they can also spend time on the land. So briefly, those are the two brief explanations of the two groups that I'm going to mainly discuss today. And the reason why I want to discuss these species in this seminar is because they have been attributed less attention but in most countries, including African countries, due to different factors, including the myth and other folklore. So I will be explaining some of our observations, research, and also the future trends, talking about these species in the Rwandan perspective. So talking about the folklore, these are the different myths and beliefs from the people. On my right side, this is a frog. It's a frog, as you see it, of course, depending on different people's opinion, they will look at this frog as a disgusting animal. I remember all the time when I bring these species on the table of discussion with different stakeholders, they'd be like, do you touch these species with your hands? And after that, do you eat? So the reason of the question is the disgust that they believe these species brings. So amphibians and reptiles have long been unappreciated by humans around the globe. And this unappreciation has created a kind of understanding and attitude and perception towards their value within not only ecosystems, but also the human society. Some will say they're not cute, not beautiful. They are not as charismatic as the gorillas, as the chimpanzees and other species. And all of those unappreciation leads to the persecution of these animals. So you'll see these animals being killed, mostly intentionally, because of the belief, the understanding, and also the lack of awareness about their ecological role within different ecosystems. So people underestimate their importance. We can list some of these ones. You know, ecosystems balance or adjustment depends on the trophic ecology or the niche, the role of these species within an ecological perspective. They are controlling pests in agriculture, where these frogs will be feeding on some insect or other pests that are deteriorating agriculture plantations. And they can also act as other biological control agents for other pests, like some snakes are known to be near homes or human settlements, looking for rats, the rodents, to control the mice that are coming to devastate the crops and other human properties. So people do not appreciate their presence, not only because they can be fearful or disgusting as other people say, but ignoring their importance brings in immediately the idea of persecuting them. Other examples includes what we know here in Rwanda as the house geckos, Marie-José and others. So you'll be seeing them at home, they are reptiles, feeding on little mosquitoes and other little insects that are in your home. The first thing that human does is just taking a stick or something heavy and hit them to death. So the conservation effort needs to not always focus on those charismatic species, but also value the importance of these other species which do not contribute directly to human economy. So I'm sorry to use the terminology, selfishness of the economic value of biodiversity appreciation is limited merely on the charismatic species. Different funds and donations focus mainly on protecting those charismatic species. What about other species which are voiceless? What about other species which are not being studied only because they don't provide direct money? That's the question. So they are killed by humans without any explanation, and their death goes silent. Their habitats are being lost. Their populations decline due to pollution and climate change. They are being ignored. Diseases such as the carotid fungus that are mainly affecting amphibians remain poorly studied in some countries. And because people do not know these species, they will definitely decline their population. So the consequence is mainly the decline in populations and seeing some species going extinct. Here I give an example of 37 amphibian species that have already been declared extinct all over the world. In Rwanda, we recorded recently the local extinction of Calyxalus pictus, the painted frog that was in the western part of Rwanda in the bamboo forest. So due to devastation of their habitats, Rwanda does no longer record Calyxalus pictus. So the question is, who cares about the disappearance or the extinction of a frog? Who cares about the extinction of some reptiles? Instead, do we have to keep quiet? So here comes the question. Now, after understanding the different folklore and understanding how some of these species are being unappreciated and undermined by human, then the journey starts to question, what species do we have? Do we know what we have? If they undergo extinction, what could ecosystem or human lose? So understanding all of those questions, looking for answers, is the inspiration that I started with the journey. So I came to understand that there's a need to do something to protect these species that do not speak directly to human because they don't provide economic benefits. So we started learning from experts, being in the bush all the time, trying to study different ecosystems where they occur, trying to understand their ecological implication. Then we grow the passion to continue to stay longer in the nature, days and nights, staying with these animals, to look at different elevation gradients, different type of ecosystem, using social media to post whatever we observe so that we can attract attention at the international opinion. So we start developing different collaborations with international partners, thanks to German researchers who came to Rwanda since 2009 to start studying these species. This is the team of Rwandans who already embarked the journey to study these species. I want to appreciate the presence and the work done by Hendrik Hinkel from the Biodiversity Center, Christella from University of Germany, Salim from ARCOS, and also my colleague from Congo, whom we have been working together collaboratively to develop the understanding of these species in Rwanda. What I call the sunshine is, after posting at different social media, we have been contacted by international agencies where we were granted some trainings. Here we were under the GRS Biodiversity Foundation, where we were funded to study the taxonomy of these species using genomics. After that, a lot of publications have outcome because there are few literature that depict the understanding of these species. You can see a number of them, mostly collaborating with some Germans to develop these publications. And now we are collaborating with Asians and Canadians and South Africans to ensure that we have studies of these species at a global scale. Today, amphibian reptiles in Rwanda have been attributed, they're recognized. Why? Because if you see the different reports that the government provides technically concerning ecosystems, this information about small species were lacking. But of course, I want to appreciate the role that the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity and Natural Resource Management has invested to ensure that these taxonomic groups are brought on the table of discussion to different conservation agenda. So here, now we can list the different assessments that have been carried out. The list is not the last one. We have a number of ongoing assessments that are no longer leaving behind amphibians and reptiles. Why? Because they're important biological indicators of ecosystem change, informing changes that are happening in ecosystems before and after rehabilitation, to bring in information, data that is very important for monitoring and decision making. Then the next step was, now we have done publications, we are understanding some of the fact. What is next is capacity building, going to different communities, explaining to them, and most especially those wildlife protectors, those people who are staying within ecological systems, protecting nature. Understanding these species was one of our top priorities in capacity building. So you can see the pictures that we have, introducing these new science to different rangers to ensure that they protect these species within the vicinities where the community are, calling it animal protection. Secondly, bringing these skills to young generations, because we believe they introduce long-term change. So you can see how happy these kids are to experience that for the first time handling a snake. We believe that bringing this idea to young generations will create a sense of sustainable conservation because they will induce a long-term change. Here, I have my colleague Hendrik working with the University of Global Health Equity to build capacity also among kids of the primary schools to ensure that they understand that not all the snakes are venomous, and which ones are venomous, and how do we protect ourselves against venomous snake. Then we continue to study, because amphibians and reptiles are bigger groups. I want to appreciate the efforts by Christelle Omolisa. She's one of the research fellows of the center, also who have taken a step, even publishing her first result of the occurrence of some turtles in Rwanda, including terrapins in the Kagera, and her research is still ongoing to confirm the presence of others, maybe some species that are still new to science. Then we have continued to build capacity among university students. These are the university of students from the University of Rwanda under the ecotourism and green space management and forestry and nature conservation, working days and nights to try to investigate, to understand, to be able to identify these species. So you can see from left to right, capacity building, training continue among different stakeholders, nature exploration with university students, young people, to learn how to identify the frogs, to learn how to identify some of the reptiles, to ensure that when we are building this capacity, they have hands-on so that they become the ambassadors of changes in this taxonomy classification and conservation species. So you can see different activities that have been ongoing within the university, building capacity, creating even new experience. Some of them fear, but bringing, this understanding, don't worry, you can touch it, that is not venomous. You see, they will start enjoying and creating a new experience. But why do we do this? Is to ensure that these people can be the ambassadors of the gospel of conservation that we are preaching today. So to conclude, there are different ongoing initiatives, as I have just shown a few. And we have been, I can say, successful in integrating the neglected species conservation perspective in the conservation agenda of the country, because all of these assessments, as I said, they are considering amphibian reptiles in the monitoring of biodiversity in Rwanda. However, there are still some myths. There are still some folklore. And you'll see that the researchers here within locally in Rwanda, they are still not so much interested to work with these animals. However, we have challenges. We believe that these challenges will not be permanent. We still have hope that it will happen one time when this species voice will be heard at a generalized scale. So I don't want to take too much time talking about this. I reserve time for questions, appreciations, encouragement. Why not joining? I can say this war of fighting against myth and folklore to conserve these species in Rwanda. Allow me to say thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mapendo, for your good presentation. Mr. Mapendo, thank you for raising your sound, for just speaking out for this underrepresented species that you have here in Rwanda. Mostly amphibians and the other reptiles are overlooked within our research ecosystem here in Rwanda. But thank you very much for raising your voice, speaking for those ecosystems. Amphibians and reptiles, as we know, they are crucial ecosystem parts because they are bioindicators. They are part of our ecosystems. But if they are not known, they are not protected, they can be extincted. So, dear team, let us congratulate Mr. Mapendo for taking his part for advocating for this species. So allow me for this time to receive your comments or questions. I think we will paste our questions in chat section, or we will raise hand for the questions. Please, the floor is yours to ask the questions or have a comment on the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Constante. I see two hands in the air, Hilary and Bev. Please welcome one of them to start.
Thank you very much. Let's start by one and by one. Let's start with Beth, and then after Beth,
I think Hillary was before me. Hillary, you can go before me. I think you were first. Is Hillary there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm thinking about ecosystem health and measuring it. So, Mapendo, thank you for a really, really nice talk. I enjoyed it immensely, even though I'm walking outside at the moment, on a very hot day. I'm thoroughly enjoying the talk. So, my question is this. In terms of ecosystem health, would you put abundance of the main common species and the abundance of those in any setting ahead of the presence of a wide number of species in any particular setting? Or does it have to be a combination of both?
Thank you very much, Hilary, for bringing the question. And this is really very important when we are assessing the ecosystem health using amphibians. First of all, both matters. So when we talk of the ecological condition of an ecological system, let's say, for example, the Rugezi wetland, which is taken as at least a model of a semi-natural wetland that still holds a very bigger portion of a natural habitat, I can say that amphibians richness, that means the community assemblage, different species definitely will explain the ecological conditions. We have some species that adapt natural status, and others can tolerate human domination after altering or changing these ecosystems. For example, we can have some frogs which will adapt papyrus, and we have some other frogs which will adapt open space after cutting papyrus. So the abundance of those species will depend on the ecological conditions. If papyrus is the dominant vegetation, definitely you'll have a dominance of the reed frogs. And if the papyrus have been cut off or removed, definitely there will be some species which will boom in their abundance because they like to stay in open status. So richness is one, presence or absence of a species vis-a-vis to the ecological condition, but also the abundance depending on the characteristic of the habitat. So when we are monitoring ecosystem health, we pay attention to both metrics, the richness and also the abundance measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very clear. That's helpful probably across a range of taxa, not just frogs and toads and so on. I think that's very helpful information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laurie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mapendo. That was really, really interesting. And I just wanted to say just how pleased I am to see that work going on. It was really always a big part of, I think, the role of the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity and Natural Resource Management to do this kind of work, which is both the taxonomy and then the capacity building and the collaboration. And the way you presented your work really encompasses all of these different themes and values about doing biodiversity conservation. And I think you really stand as a model for this kind of work. And I know there's other researchers in the center doing this work as well. And I really hope you all have opportunities to talk together about how you do it, because I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to get the funding and to get the time and to keep your energy levels up, but it's really some of the most important work. And you're finding, also new species and mentoring, the next generation behind you, and also publishing in scientific journals. It's just really super to see. And I wanted to just ask if, what's your next steps? Is it really trying to identify, new species, the taxonomy part, or is it developing more, I've always been pushing this, indicators and how refined we can get in the indicators. And for example, frogs as indicators in health and the indices, like we have, an odonate index. Are you thinking about something like that, or is it more in the education domain? Because, as you indicated, there's a lot of work to be done in that area as well. So I'll leave it at that and listen to what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth. I first of all want to, if we were in a bigger room, I could ask everyone to just applaud for you, because you have invested a lot of efforts to ensure that these young researchers are at the center keep the momentum to work on a particular species. And your mentorship has been very valuable to see what we are doing. Thanks, Beth, for being the mother to that perspective. So coming to your question, of course, it's a combination of everything. My end purpose, it is not to see the frogs being only valued by people, not killing them, but also to ensure that there is a robust metric to be created by the country, by us researchers, that is going to support evidence-based decision-making, where we can, of course, build some amphibian-based indices. You gave an example of odonate, and I know there is also a similar one with macroinvertebrates using the South African metric system. And yeah, I think that will be really a very nice success story because it incorporates not only the distribution of amphibians, their habitat characteristic, but also the threats behind their decline. So that is a very big and robust project that I think should be the next way. But doing that must also bring in the education perspective and also assessment. I believe that there are still species which are not yet known. In my collection at the center, if I can, explain, during these recent surveys, there are some amphibians which we find that are not yet known. So we are still working to ensure that we know if they are the ones we know. Probably the morphologies are the same, but the genetics can a little bit differ. Or they are species completely new to science. So all of those additions will help to create the metrics because the metrics will incorporate all of those species, also depending on how they're distributed across different habitats in Rwanda. So for me, index is important. Education is one of my interests, and also discovery is something I'm looking forward to. I want to inform that one of my recent publications was accepted where the frog species that we recorded for, let me say, the first time in Rwanda within a high calling chorus, which is also endangered to science, Cardioglusa salmonspila, during one of our summer school, will be published on the 15th of this month. So that is really encouraging on how Africans, especially Rwandans, start, becoming the first authors of publications and encouraging other people to do this science because they're still under investigated, yet they hold enough information to inform to the country. So thank you very much, Beth, for that motivation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the questions. We are still receiving some questions. If there's questions or comment, the floor is still open for the ones who want to ask or comment on the Mapendo's presentation. Thank you very much. If there isn't, we may ask Mr. Mapendo to give us like a take-home message, and then we close this presentation. Thank you very much.
I see Hilary is still raising the hand.
Dear Mr. Mapendo, I think you can give us a take-home message, and we really appreciate your effort and giving your contribution in conserving our biodiversity in Rwanda, as well as training younger generation in conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me back the floor to give a take-home message. The message I always give is, please let those animals which do not speak use our voices to speak for them. Becoming the ambassadors of change requires everyone to take time to understand and explore what is unexplored. So please do not kill these animals because you don't know what is held for us. So I believe that protecting their habitat, protecting their habitat is one of the key actions advocating for them. International again, to acknowledge the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity through different capacity to support the taxon expertise that is being built. Thank you so much, directors. Thank you so much, colleagues. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mapendo. I think you can close this session today and thank everyone who attended this series presentation, and we would like to have you the next time. Thank you very much. And I may say goodbye to everyone. Thank you.